Information discussed in this podcast may be sensitive in nature to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. In August of 2019, 27-year-old Joel Stephany was living in Lima, New York, just 30 minutes south of Rochester. Joel is known for being a sweet guy, friendly and easygoing, always smiling. On August 24th, Joel spent the night at his mom's house. On August 25th, Joel's mom, Wendy, got up to leave for work and said goodbye to her son. Joel had always been pretty close to both of his parents. He had in fact been an only child until he was 6 years old. For the next couple of days, Wendy did try to call and text Joel, but she never heard back from him. Even though he was an adult, she was starting to worry. On August 27th, Wendy received a text from a friend of Joel's who said that they stopped by his place and they didn't think anyone had been there and his animals weren't being taken care of. Joel had 2 dogs that were his world. By August 29th, he was officially a missing person. Joel hasn't been seen or heard from since. Where is Joel Stephany? Hello, and welcome to this week's Where Are They? Bonus episode. The case of Joel Stephany seems pretty suspicious to me, but there isn't much information out there on his disappearance. There's really no evidence pointing us in any one direction. It seems that Joel vanished into thin air. As we are approaching the 3-year anniversary of his disappearance, I really want to get his story told. I want to thank all of you so much for the support of our show and allowing me to share these stories, even the ones that don't have a lot of information out there to go on. Let's get into the story of Joel Stephany. Joel was born to parents Trey and Wendy, and for 6 years he was an only child. Trey and Wendy were both young when Joel was born, and they stated that Joel was the type of kid they could take everywhere with them, and they did. Joel remained close to his parents while growing up and his younger siblings that would be born later. As a kid, Joel was a proud Cub Scout. He played Little League baseball every year, and he was even involved in the annual musical theater productions. He was an active kid. It's not exactly clear when or how it really began, but at some point, Joel found himself involved in the drug scene. He also found himself in trouble with the law regarding his drugs. In March of 2019, just months before he would vanish, Joel was pulled over for a traffic stop, and police found pills in his car, specifically Xanax, along with some marijuana. Joel was also a big fan of the rock band Phish. Big fan. In June, he traveled to Cleveland, Ohio for a concert, and he also purchased tickets for a Phish concert in Denver, Colorado for the end of August. Not only did he have to purchase those tickets, which weren't cheap, but he also had to purchase a round-trip ticket to fly to Denver. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he did have friends in the Denver area. On August 24th, 2019, about a week before he would be leaving to go to this concert, Joel went to go visit with his mother, and he ended up spending the night at her house. The next morning, when Wendy was leaving for work, she said goodbye to her oldest son, and she told him she loved him. She walked out the door and left that morning as she always did. The next couple of days, Wendy tried to call and text her son, but she received no response. Her phone calls were going straight to voicemail. She was starting to worry a little bit, but after all, Joel was a 27-year-old adult. The disappearance. On August 27th, 2019, Wendy received a call from one of Joel's friends. They said they had stopped over at Joel's place because they hadn't been able to reach him, and he wasn't there. They also said it appeared as if the animals he had weren't being cared for, and that was concerning. Joel loved his dogs very much. So, of course, now Wendy was freaking out too. She also had not been able to reach Joel, and she knew that he would never not take care of his animals for a couple days, no matter what. On August 29th, Joel was officially reported missing. The search. There are contradictory opinions on how well the authorities investigated in the beginning, but what law enforcement did learn is that a friend of Joel's picked him up at his home on August 25th. On that evening, and that was the same day he had left his mother's house that morning. This friend said that they took him to Rochester, New York, about 25 to 30 minutes away. Specifically, an area of Rochester known as North Clinton Street. This friend of Joel's said he dropped him off around 7:30 p.m. He couldn't remember exactly where, however, and he had no idea where Joel was going from there. While law enforcement does seem to be going by what this friend said, family has stated that they don't believe this friend is necessarily reliable in their story. But authorities will roll on with this as the last sighting of Joel. In addition to law enforcement now hitting the streets and questioning people, the family does the same. They put missing posters up and flyers. They hit the streets and start talking to people. They really start doing their own search for Joel. Joel also had a bunch of friends come out and also help look for him. Homeless shelters were also searched and people there were talked to. And all of his accounts were monitored for activity, but nothing was found. And it was definitely confirmed to be a crisis when Joel's flight went to Denver without him. Some do believe that Joel's history of substance abuse played a role in not everyone taking the case as seriously as they should have. And that happens a lot. If someone has a history of substance abuse, sometimes authorities believe their disappearance was of their own accord. And searches continued to turn up no clues as to Joel's whereabouts. No one could find him or any sign of him. Family was able to get the help of some area nonprofit groups, Hope Dealers and SOARS, SOARS. And they did end up putting up a billboard and offering a $5,000 reward. Some leads would start to trickle in, and authorities said they have followed up on every single one of those leads, but still no Joel. Rochester, New York. So law enforcement does list Rochester as being the last confirmed place that he was seen. However, some question if he was ever even in Rochester that day to begin with. The friend that claimed to have taken him there did not cooperate with law enforcement. They would not let officers look at their phone, search their car, and they ultimately pretty quickly hired an attorney and refused to speak. And yes, that always does seem suspicious. And it seems suspicious to me too, to some extent. But I also have to say, I think in many cases, it can be a very good idea to obtain a lawyer before sitting down with law enforcement. I've seen well-intentioned folks be really taken advantage of and had their words twisted in the process. I would definitely recommend to anyone in a situation like that to have a lawyer with you. So let's look at the area of Rochester, and then we'll backtrack a little further south to the Lima, New York area. North Clinton Avenue in Rochester runs north and south. This is where the friend said they had dropped Joel off at. We don't have an exact location on North Clinton Avenue to kind of pinpoint And in fact, this friend said they couldn't even remember exactly either. But it is in a very populated city of Rochester, New York. 2 miles to the west of North Clinton Avenue is the Genesee River, a very good-sized river that can be fast-moving. There are some parks and wooded areas surrounding the river, but again, it's a city and it's pretty well built up with people everywhere. And in 2019, you'd think there'd be quite a bit of CCTV footage throughout the city as well. But could Joel have walked over to the river if it was only 2 miles and maybe fell in? If he had indeed taken some drugs or alcohol that day, could he have had an accident? And then Rochester sits on the shores of Lake Ontario, one of the country's Great Lakes. North Clinton Street is only a few miles from the lake. But then we still have to wonder, did Joel even make it to Rochester? Do we believe that he was indeed taken there? He was from the Lima Honai Falls area, which is just south of Rochester. The area does have a bunch of little lakes, ponds, and a large creek running through it. And it does look pretty suburban and rural in those areas as well. Nothing really stands out as far as a large nature preserve or a larger lake. Some rumors have circulated that maybe he is even living as a homeless person in Rochester. This would make sense, especially if he had fallen back into his drug habits. But I think what I keep thinking about with regards to that theory is him abandoning his dogs. For a dog lover, even one on drugs, this doesn't make sense to me. Others have speculated that maybe he was trying to get away from some of his legal issues. He just had that traffic stop back in March. Could he have hopped on a bus or caught a flight out of Rochester? But how would he have done that without using his ID and his bank accounts? So to me, that doesn't seem likely either. Joel Stephany is described as a Caucasian male, standing about 6 feet tall and weighing around 200 pounds. He has longer brown hair, blue eyes, and generally is seen with facial hair, sometimes a little bit and sometimes a little more. His ears are pierced and he has a Roman numeral tattoo on his arm. He might have been seen last in Rochester wearing green pants and a blue flannel shirt. Anyone with any information on the whereabouts of Joel Stephany is asked to call the Monroe County Sheriff's Office at 585-753-4178 or the Crime Stoppers hotline, where you can remain anonymous at 585-423-9300. Joel was 27 when he disappeared in 2019, and he would today be going on 30. What do you think could have happened to Joel Stephany? Someone out there likely knows what happened to Joel, and his family has been waiting 3 long years for answers. This is what his dad, Trey Stephany, had to say. Quote, "It's a little bit like you're in a fog. Certainly, the unknown is very hard. One day he's alive, one day he's dead. We go back and forth depending on the information we have." End quote. I can't imagine the horror of having to live like that every day. Thank you so much for listening to Joel's story today. Please remember to give us a follow over on social media for case updates and news. Hopefully there will be some in this case very soon. We will be back again next week with another Unsolved Missing Person episode. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.